Hello. There are few mathematical concepts, ideas, and formulae. If you remember them, you will have a lot of ease in solving questions in your MSQE exam, J exam, CAT exam, or any mathematical exam. So, what are those ideas? The first is going to be sine square theta plus cos square theta is equal to 1. The second would be sine of 45 degree is equal to cos of 45 degree is equal to 1 upon root 2. Then you have to remember the sine 0, 30, 45, 60, 90, and same for cos. Then you have to remember the same for tan, and then also remember the 3, 4, 5 triangle. For 3, 4, 5 triangle, you have 37 degree and 53 degrees as the other angles apart from the 90-degree angle. And then you will also have other Pythagorean triplet triangles like your 5, 12, and 30, if I'm not wrong. And then what else you have to remember? You have to remember at least the first 10, 12 prime numbers, and then at least first 20, 30 perfect squares. And then you have to also remember that square root of any number is always a positive quantity. So when I say square root of 4, it is 2. When I say square root of minus 2 whole square, even that is 2, because square root of something is essentially a positive number. So if I have to tell you square root of x square, you will write it as equal to mod of x. Now, what is the next concept? The next concept is the concept of odd and even functions. When you have an even function, the reflection about the y-axis is the same. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that the function is identical if you go right or if you go left. It's like your cos x function from minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2. Now, what is the other type of function like that? Odd function. Odd function is essentially the opposite. So for the odd function, if you go to the positive side, it might be positive, and if you go to the negative side, it will be negative. So it's like saying this. Example is your sine x function from minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2. And then you should also remember a few ideas about differentiation, that if you differentiate e to the power x, it is e to the power x. And about integration, if you integrate 1 upon x, your answer is not going to be the usual x to the power n formula. Your answer will be ln x plus obviously a constant c if it's an indefinite integral. You should remember few geometry formulas, like the angle subtended at the center is essentially twice the angle subtended at the segment. So if this angle at the segment is theta, at the center it will be 2 theta. Now a good example to check that would be the diameter essentially is subtending an angle 180 degree at the center, and so if you connect the two diametrically opposite points to the segment, you will have a 90-degree angle. Now other thing which you should remember is your midpoint theorem, your formulae for the area of various geometrical figures, and then surface area, volume, and other ideas are like whenever you're solving a question and you're like stuck and that question is related to functions or number theory, try to find out whether I can solve it using the ideas of odd number, even number, or prime numbers, composite numbers, or I can do some kind of factorization or some kind of a simplification, some kind of an algebraic manipulation. And then let's say if you have something like a geometry based question, and the question is essentially a coordinate geometry question, try to think of it in terms of Euclidean geometry. If you have a probability based question and you are not able to visualize the probability situation, try to think in terms of Venn diagram, in terms of set theory. And whenever you have a maxima minima function, try to go to the first differentiation and the second differentiation. And when you're in the first differentiation, there is also a certain amount of information which you can get directly from the first differentiation. You don't need to go to the second differentiation always. Now whenever the first differentiation is 0, try to find out what is happening beyond that point and before that point. That will give you an idea that whether your first differentiation is increasing or decreasing. So if the first differentiation is increasing, so definitely your second differentiation will be positive, and if the first differentiation is decreasing, definitely your second differentiation would be negative. So this is the idea which you can use when you don't want to calculate the second differentiation, or you just want to check whether your second differentiation is giving the right answer or not. You must already know that when a question has tasked you to do the integration and the integration is difficult, try to differentiate the options and get the answer. Whenever you have a kind of a polynomial, cubic polynomial or a fourth degree polynomial, and you have to find out the roots of the polynomial, essentially you just have to find out the factors of the polynomial, or just have to divide the polynomial by some factors. So what you can do is try to test it with some numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now how will you do these tests? Just put in 0 into the number. If you put in 0 into the number and that polynomial turns to 0, it means x is a factor, or whatever the symbol is used, maybe y or z, whatever the symbol is used in the polynomial. So that symbol x is the factor. If you put 1 and it becomes 0, so in that way x minus 1 is a factor. If you put 2 and it becomes 0, x minus 2 is a factor, and so on. You can try for these numbers, and then you can gradually understand which are the factors of this polynomial. And once you understand that what is the one factor of that polynomial, you can safely divide that polynomial with that factor. Also, there are few things which I will not tell you the exact formula or the exact concept, but I'll try to give you a direction towards that. Always remember that these questions, when you have a square and inside that square you have a circle or another square, these questions are quite favorite of competitive exams. So always try to be comfortable in these questions. That what happens if you make square inside a square, or a circle inside a square, or a square inside a circle. And there could be questions like, I'm making square inside a square inside a square, so I'm repeatedly making squares inside the square. What will be the total perimeter, what will be the total area, and so on. And then you could also have some questions like, there's a sphere, you cut that sphere from between, and then you take out a cuboid from there. What will be the remaining volume of that hemisphere? So these are the questions which you should always be thorough with, because these are something which you should not get doubts in an exam. You should always be ready with the approach for such questions. In linear programming problem, LPP, or you can also say this as your mathematical programming, what you have to understand is, try to think of it first using a very low-tech formula. What's a low-tech formula or a low-tech method? Just draw the diagrams. I mean, if there are 3 equations and all are in 2 variables, you can easily draw the diagrams, right? So draw the diagrams and try to then visualize the problem. That will be easier rather than just directly going to the methods of simplex or big M or any other method of solving LPP problems.